and welcome to another EVDevTech workshop. Remember that we're just here to listen to your problems. Um, we do have a topic today. We're going to start a series on IT foundations, but you can interrupt us at any time. Remember, this is supposed to be an office hour
You.
for you. So any problems that you might have, issues, ideas, things like that, don't forget to comment or put them in the chat, or we're here for you. This is a this is your office hours to solve whatever tech problem you have. Okay, so I am gonna check some stuff out. Very good. Just checking out all of our mediums real quick.
Yes, I'm not seeing you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. We're on YouTube, so YouTube's good. It looks like LinkedIn is down. There it is. Yeah, we're there.
Great.
All right, checking one more. All right. All right. So let's get the show started. Oh, I forgot I'm not even sharing my screen. Let me do that. So how was your break? Happy New Year's.
You're right. We are just starting the year, and I had an amazing break. I almost
Good.
forgot what do I do for living, but I love marketing, so then I quickly
um,
remember.
I almost forgot we were had to come back. I forgot how to do my job.
Yes,
I haven't
everyone can get
disconnected
it.
like that in a while.
That's nice.
Let's see here.
So we're starting a series this week, creating
Serious.
creating some foundation.
Yes, yes. So Lada has created an awesome series for us, which we're going to elaborate a little bit more. So it's going to be IT Foundation. And so remember that this is a space for you guys to geek out on your problems, and we will try to offer you some solution, right? So any type of technology issues, guidance, strategy, ideas, um, just ask us, and we'll give you our peace of mind.
Actually, do you have the presentation ready over there? I'm not seeing the screen just
Oh,
yet.
Yeah, I'm over here presenting without presenting.
Yeah, because
Boom.
that's the brief introduction. There you go. This is a great space for any business owner to just geek out.
Exactly. Tell
Okay.
us what you think. Tell us what you got, and we're here to give you feedback. All right. So let's get the show started. So, what are we doing? Today, we're talking about IT infrastructure, mainly on the hardware side. Um, we tend to forget that we use hardware with technology as a hardware at a base, right? It runs somewhere, whether it's on your computer or on a server, which we'll talk about in then the future session. So some of the topics we're talking about today. So, what is hardware and why does it matter? Um, if you're listening to it, oh, sorry, one second. I'm I'm on double duty today. I'm on daddy duty and workshop
EVDevTech.
duty. My wife stepped out for a little bit. So today we're going to talk about what is hardware? Why does it matter? It's kind of a very simple topic, but it's very important. We tend to forget that, especially if a lot of what you produce is in front of a keyboard and mouse, that that hardware is important, and sometimes it's costly. So it matters at the end of the day. So we're going to talk about it at the macros level, so the big picture, and then we're going to go into some details at the micro level. And so, what is the hardware and why is it critical for the business? And we're going to talk about some key concept and talk about some things that are some misconception. So nowadays, every business uses some form of technology hardware, right? A lot of the, especially on the accounting side, um, right? Pretty much your entire accounting database is going to be digital on some form of hardware, and you access that using a computer, which is also hardware. So without the right components, your tools can't perform efficiently. Um, I wouldn't, hardware is kind of like in the back, um, kind of holds everything together and holds it and enables movement. So the big picture, it, depending on your type of business, right? So if you're in construction or you're building something or you're growing with something, you're not really using the tools that you use are going to be actual construction tools, a hammer, screw, things like that. Um, but when you're in an office setting, the hardware is the tool, right? So it's part of that machine factory, it's part of that production line. And so it's how you put in information and that's how you get information out, right? So you type in information on your keyboard, um, and then with a few clicks and generating some reports, um, that output gets put on the screen.
Well,
So
Eric,
that's what the hardware is.
Eric,
Yes.
what would be kind of like the major challenges that you've found clients face during this definition of a macro process? Like, um, This could be a startup or even a big company. What are the challenges that they face?
Um, Most of the time, and a lot of business owners, and including myself, I put myself in that bucket, is um, they want the best, right? And usually the best is the most expensive. They want the fastest. They want um, the best for their business, and that is not always the number one thing you should focus on, right? The best doesn't define what's going to provide your business the most value. You can have the best, right? But if your tech stack is mainly SaaS based and everything is accessed through a browser, um, and there's no you don't need to compute anything, and you don't need to. You're not really using the hardware to process things. Um, then you're wasting money because now you might have a $4,000 machine, but you're the same $400 machine or $500 machine could do just as great of a job. Um, and so that's kind of what I've seen a lot of businesses do is essentially um, you're trying to kill a cockroach with a bazooka, and it's like your foot works just fine, so just stomp on it, right? Um, and and that's what I've seen a lot of businesses do. Bigger organizations, they tend to actually kind of review the finances and expenses, and so they'll probably be a little bit more cost conscious. Especially even newer, smaller businesses are also a lot more cost conscious, so they will want to make sure that. Um, well, I can't afford the $4,000 machine, or why would I need to buy the $4,000 machine? So that's kind of what the big picture is. It's like, what is the strategy? What is going to work for you? And that doesn't mean that all of your departments need to have the same equipment or the same hardware,
Mhm.
right? So it's about right sizing the company or the industry to make sure you have the tools because the hardware is just a tool. So just making sure you have the right tool to get the job done, right? So if you're a programmer or if you're yeah, I would even argue that a lot of programmers don't really need um, like a high cutting edge machine as well. Unless you're rendering videos, unless you're rendering images, the programmer is a game developer and they're rendering games and things that require a lot of computational power.
Mhm.
That's probably when you do the investments because it's going to actually save you time, and that's why you invest in these bigger computers or bigger hardware or better hardware or faster hardware or more efficient hardware is to ultimately just save you time because you're getting the right tool for the job. um, and that's where we really need that at a macro level. That's I think what all small businesses need to focus on when they're looking at what type of technology hardware do I need. And if everything is on a website, you don't need a big machine. You don't need things like that. If you're developing a game and you don't want to sit there, or you don't want to pay for someone to sit there to develop your game, and probably 30-40% of their time they're sitting waiting for the game to render completely because
Mhm.
you didn't want to buy them a new computer. So now if you take into account salary, right, if you take account like, okay, 30%, 40% of their time is them just sitting waiting for the rent. They might be doing other things, checking emails, updating project plans and things like that in the meantime, but they're really just waiting for the game to be done rendering so they can test it and review it and figure out like what's going on. So that's kind of where at a macro level this is very important because it's your production line. You don't want any bottlenecks, right? So you want things to work, you want things to be efficient, you want things to work fast, and you want information to flow very just flow without any bottlenecks or any issues. So as you can see here, we have 3 points, right? Seamless communication across devices. So what type of communications are needed? Are they going to be doing faxing, or do they need print? Do they need voice over IP? Um, a phone, a virtual phone system, um, and what type of data processes are they doing? Right? Is it stable enough to handle business operations? Invoicing and
Mhm.
scheduling. I would say it's just very basic web processing. But for inventory management now, how big is the inventory? How much data does the inventory load? I've seen in my experience where if you have a very big inventory and you're trying to load all of that, or you're trying to load a couple thousand records, well, the hardware that you run that on, or that's trying to receive that information, is important, because now you might not need a lot of CPU, but you do need a lot of RAM. And we're going to go into the micro level here in a second, where we talk about what the heck does that mean and what does it do for my computer. So
Mhm.
macro, take a look at the big picture, look at your processes, look at the roles, who's doing what, why are they doing that, and then the goal from a technology side is making sure that they have the right tool, the right hardware to be able to do their role efficiently, and to be able to essentially produce and without any bottlenecks. And then number three, scale for growth without bottlenecks, and that's exactly that. Once you identify that role, you have new hire that turns into a team or to a department. Well, you already know what hardware works for that, so you don't need to second guess. It's You already have the strategy. You already know what hardware they need, and you can kind of go from there. And this goes from applications, like it says, inputs and outputs. Like, what are they doing? What are they trying to input? Do they need scans? Things like that. So then you go into like the type of inputs that it needs, and like USBs, right? Or USB-Cs. Now that everything, there's no USBs anymore on, if you have a Mac, right? It's they're only USBs. And so at a micro level, right? So this
This
is
is it.
the inner workings.
Hmm.
So when we're talking about hardware here, it's really a computer, right? So each computer component performs a specific task. CPU is in a name. It's a central processing unit, um, and so all it does, it's computers are dumb. People think that, oh, I don't know what they do, but they're made by humans, and they do what
What
the
we
human
tell them.
told them to do, right? Um, and so without taking you guys to a computer engineering class as to how an architecture of a processor looks like, it's really just giving it instructions and it's performing that instruction. So I need you to add 1 plus 1. Well, it has components inside of it, some logic components that understand, what's the instructions of addition, what is one, what is the other one, and then it provides you with two, which, so essentially it's just a really it's just a processor. It's just processing. Like, if you look at a process diagram, you have inputs, you have the actual process, and you have an output. And that is all a processing unit does, is that you give it the input, it does what you told it to do, and it's going to give you the output. And that is all it does. It doesn't have any other function other than to do what you told it to do based off of the instructions that it has.
I love, Eric, that this concept will be kind of like the foundation for just about everything that's coming in the series, which is the brand new AI and all of the instructions that you could give to an automation. So these are just that. So the essence is this. So it's very, very important.
Yeah.
But
So we're
you
talking
know
about
what?
the yeah.
I want to know about the example on that when you have a repository of data and you're trying to get that user to go to that whatever you know you have a concept. I don't have it, but like a silo or where is it getting the information? You said about the example of the RAM, so I'm looking forward for that.
Yeah. Um, so this hardware is the basic to what everything runs off a computer, right? Everything. I mean, not everything, but I mean like anything that's digital runs off a computer. So everything that we're talking about is the minute detail of how everything runs, even AI.
Hmm.
Like even the algorithms, AI runs off of a computer. It runs off of a processor, right? um, they run better off of um, you know if it's a natural language processor and things like that. There's specific processors that have been built for AIs, but the concept is the same: input, process, output. And it's just at a different scale and a little bit of a different methodologies, because you have different parameters that come in when we're talking about AI. But the concepts for all of these are going to be the same. So for RAM, it's called random access, so it doesn't hold on to it, because what are we doing? It's really close to the CPU. RAM is always going to be really close to the CPU, because it's what it's the inputs and the output that the CPU is working on, right? So when you give it an instruction of, hey, do this, it's going to put all of the instructions into the RAM, and then the processor is going to grab from the RAM the data or the instructions that it needs, because there's always both. There's always the instruction and there's always the data that the instruction is going to work on, right?
Hmm.
So what it does is you put it into the RAM, and then the processor is going to now pull from the RAM, hey, what's the next instruction? And then it's like the processor understands what the instruction set is, and then it is going to pull from it's going to pull the data from the RAM. Sometimes, if the data is too big, then we don't put it into the RAM. We grab it from storage. So the
Hmm.
instruction is, hey, I'm going to give you an address that's in storage, and I want you to use that for this instruction. Like you're talking about, hey, I want you to pull from a repository. Forget about a repository. I want you to pull from a file system,
Hmm.
right? So the CPU is going to come in here. It's going to look at you're going to put that instruction into the RAM. The CPU is going to pull that instruction set from the RAM. Say,
Hmm.
oh, I have the instruction to pull this data from this address, and that address lives on a storage device. And so now I have to go and pull
Yes.
that data from the storage device,
Hmm.
provide another set of instructions. It's Everything is so literal, but the thing is that it happens so fast,
Fast.
right? That's why when you look at a CPU, I mean, you're looking at the gigahertz, you're looking at gigahertz or clock speed and things like that,
Hmm.
because that's how many instructions it can do per second.
It's a was process. Uh-huh. Yep.
Exactly.
So
Um,
on a user perspective, like you've dealt with lots of owners, and this is where it gets really critical to make a operational decision to go on this type of computer versus another type of computer. And I'm thinking some users do need it and other users just don't.
well, I mean, we're from a computer perspective, a lot of it's universal now. It used to be very like probably 20, 30 years ago, it used to be very important which computer you chose, because a lot of the functionalities and what one operating system or what one computers were built were very specific, right? Again, they're very literal machines. They do
Mhm.
exactly what you told them to do. Exactly what they're instructed to be able to do, their capabilities of what they're able to do, and um, that's it. And so back in the day, and we can go back from the begin, like the first computer, it was just a calculator. The first computers were
Mhm.
calculators. It was just, hey, I want to calculate trajectories. And that was the sole purpose of the computer. It could not surf the web. It could not um, you know um, make a phone call. It didn't have a file repository. It didn't even have a screen that you can look at, right? Like you literally had to give it the numbers or the calculations, or that you had to physically give it the inputs using back back in the day. The transistors were huge, so you physically had to put in the right components at the right um, input,
Mhm.
and then using that, and then I guess you press the button that says go, and then using the input that you provided physically, it would do the calculations and provide you that output. Those were the first computers. Now, building off of that for years and years, which we have been doing since the first computer, is that we started making it better. We started making more libraries, more use cases, making it, I want to say smarter, but it's really just creating more instruction sets, more things that it can do, instructing it on more things that it should be able to do. And so very early on, um, computers had very specific use cases. Then they kind of evolved into universal use cases where, okay, now every computer has a keyboard and mouse or a trackpad, and you need a monitor, and it could do high level things, right? It can do a lot of more high level things. And anyways, I'm probably going on a huge tangent right now, but
Th-
it's
This was great. I think this is important for any owners just trying to answer what would be the right type of storage for my needs. Because we they might have that question. Like they want to be more efficient. How do I do that?
yeah, I mean, um, nowadays, the computer question of which computer should I use is not as, it's still an important question, because if you I relate this back to ego. If you're excited, you want to have the best for everyone, you want everybody to be
Mhm.
super excited, and you're excited, and your ego gets in the way. And so now I'm going to buy everybody the best Mac machine that that money could buy. Well, if you have a team of 500 people, that can get really expensive. And then the maintenance, and then also if they break, you have to fix it. And then also, there's a lot of alsos.
Mhm.
And so that's why it's very important to, from a cost perspective, what a lot of people strategize now is like, okay, what is the middle of the road computer that, if I don't want to worry about computers or hardware, it's okay, I understand what everybody in my organization is doing, and here's the one or two computers that can do all of that at the most efficient and lowest cost. And so
Exactly.
that's what most organizations would do now. If you're in a more complex organization, for example, production line manufacturing, um, or a tech, or a tech firm or things like that, it really depends on the role and the person that's doing the work, right? Engineer, like
Mhm.
you won't be getting a very cheap machine for an engineering team, right? They need a lot of resources, especially if they're building big things,
Yep. Yeah.
to be able to render all of those assets in, let's say,
Mhm.
AutoCAD or Autodesk Inventor and stuff like that. So it's you have to again specify to you have to think about the at the macro level, think about the entire organization. What is everybody doing? What are the roles? And if it's very wide level and everybody's doing very similar things, accessing the internet, saving files, downloading files, editing files, things like that, then you don't really need a real powerful machine. Now, going back to the micro, right? A lot of the problem, most of I don't think the CPU is a problem as much anymore because CPUs have gotten extremely cheaper over time and a lot more efficient and a lot more um, um, a lot faster. Honestly, like I haven't seen every time I've gotten a new computer or look at new computers to get for clients. I've never seen them get slower. They've always gotten faster or have more cores to be able to do more things. So as time has gone past, CPUs have gotten cheaper and they've been able to do more. The one thing I have noticed is really about the RAM. So
Mhm.
RAM is very important because now it's really what holds the information for your processor to be doing the next thing. And so what I've realized is everybody doesn't like closing browser tabs. Nobody, everybody wants everything open and access to everything that they have,
Mhm.
that they work with all the time. They don't want to close anything out.
Mhm.
And we get a lot of support and help desk tickets about like, oh, my computer is running so slow. Like I need a new computer. Um, and then we go and we connect to their computer and they have everything open, all the apps, all the
I'm
files,
included.
everything open. And and we ask them like, okay, what are you doing right now? What are you using right now? And they're only using like two or three things.
Oops.
And we're like, it's a RAM problem because you don't have enough. You have so many things open. Everything is trying to process at the same time, and it's all stuck in your RAM. And then the moment that your RAM has room, it's getting taken over by another whether it's another application that's trying to refresh its processes, right? And so the biggest problem that I've seen so far with a lot of users is that they don't understand how to control their RAM because they want everything
At the same
accessible
time.
at the same
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
And that's going to use up all of your RAM, and you're not going to be able to multitask as good as you want, and the software isn't going to perform as fast as you want it to perform.
Mhm.
So what we always try to say is just have the things open, and it's going to and I'm guilty of this too. I'm guilty of trying to
Mhm.
have everything open. That's why I always get like really high end machines, and I just have everything open because that's why I've got a high end machine, so I can have everything open and stuff like that. But that it's a cost, right?
Mhm.
But now what I've realized is it's also a mental thing for me because now when I'm trying to find something, I'm slow because now I have everything open and I don't know where the hell it is. I have to keep which tab is it? Which icon is it? I have so many things open. I'm wasting more time trying to look for what I'm trying to get than if I were to apply the same principles that we should apply to that we try to apply to our clients. Is that if you're only working on three applications or three softwares, just have those three softwares open. Close
Mhm.
everything out. And when I practice this, I do feel a lot more focused. I feel like I can I work a lot faster, and I'm able to, and because I only have three things open, the hardware is a lot faster. So
Mm-hmm.
when I click on something, when I'm doing an action on something, the actions are so much faster. So it's very RAM is extremely important. Oh, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I need a new computer." You probably don't. You probably just need to just operate s- a lean operation on your computer of just having the things open that you're working on right now. And then once you're done with that task, close all of that and then open the things that are for the next task. And a lot of people, what a lot of people do is that once they get to that point of, this computer is not working for me, and they've already spent like $1,000 or $2,000 on the current machine, now they invest another thousand, so now you're at 3,000. And then the only thing that you're going to, so what happens when you have an abundance of something? You're just going to use it. And so now you've got a $3,000 machine, and now you have the same problem because you haven't fixed. It's a habit problem. It's really a behavior problem. Um,
It's really your fault.
it's your fault. It's
But
your
you know
fault.
what? I am gonna go on an unpaid, royal to Google Chrome, and this is something that I've seen in the Mac, where they actually do kind of like close your energy saving type of thing when they are trying to like run on your RAM on a more efficient way. So if I'm not using it, it will immediately just kind of like log out from that page. So that's kind of
Well,
cool. I'm
well,
thinking
that
from
that
that.
wasn't Google all the time. That's
Oh,
actually a
okay,
newer thing
okay,
that Google has implemented.
okay.
Google actually lost a lot of technical users because
Oh,
we started
because of that.
realizing, yeah, we started realizing Google Chrome is a RAM hog, right? It
Yes,
just kept eating
exactly.
everything and
Mhm.
just kept, as long as you have tabs open, it didn't care. And so that's
Mhm.
where a lot of folks started using other browsers that were
Oh, I
leaner
didn't
and
know
things like
that.
that. Yeah,
Mhm.
and so they kind of took a lot of beatings before they got to that point
Oh
because
wow. Mhm.
and it's an evolution of things,
Mhm. Of
but
course.
that's kind of what happened over time with Google Chrome. Um, but it's every browser has the same problem. It's every software has the same problem.
Mhm. Of
Every
course.
so and a lot of new software isn't the first thing that they think about because what they're trying to do is to build a functional software, and they're going to do that however they see fit. Um, but then performance is going to be secondary, right? So they'll get it working, it's functional, and then they release it. And then once they realize we got to optimize this, then they start working towards, okay, how do we optimize for RAM, cache, things like
Of
that.
course.
Storage is important, right? Because now you won't be able to download software. You can't. Random access is gone. The moment you turn off your computer or things like that, it's gone. It's nowhere to save static anything. Now, when you go to storage, that's actually where you have all your application files, things like that, and then things go from storage to your RAM. So one thing to remember: you want the things that you're working on currently, you want as close to the CPU, and that's where RAM is. RAM is very close to the CPU, but RAM actually gets all of its information from its storage. So you grab it from storage, you put it into the RAM, and then the CPU grabs it from the RAM. Sometimes, there are some functions and actions where the CPU will grabs directly from the storage, but it's usually based off of an instruction of, hey, go look over here and pull that information. But
Mhm.
what happens is that it pulls it into the RAM so that you can have it again. So that's kind of how it cycles. So it's always going to be storage, RAM, CPU, and then CPU will tell the instruction to pull from storage into the RAM back into the CPU, and it's a constant cycle. Um, then input and output devices, it's very important. Did you know that your Bluetooth is actually an input-output device?
I think so.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's the
When,
Bluetooth adapter that is either built in or that you plug in, right? You plug it into a USB, right? If you have a Bluetooth adapter,
hmm
or if your computer has Bluetooth natively, it is it is plugged into a input on the motherboard that acts the same way as if you were going to plug in a Bluetooth. That's just built in, right? It's either there's the differences. You're not taking up a USB slot because it's
hmm
built into it. But
Exactly.
it's the same thing. It's
Yep.
it's still an input device or an output device.
Yeah. I'm an iOS. Like, what's it called? User. So we call it airport now. Right? Is that
Uh,
it? Like
uh,
it's just that I don't have a good use for a Bluetooth on a daily basis. So I'm thinking just as a user, it would just be sharing photos or maybe some V cards. So
yeah, the SD cards is another type of input device, and keyboards, monitors, anything that you plug into the computer is an
yeah,
input, and
exactly.
and it might have, and everything now is bidirectional. So the same, that's why they call it I/O. So you have an I/O device or I/O
Mm,
port, because everything
mm-hmm,
now can be input. Some things are just inputs. For example, your keyboard, and
mm-hmm.
some things are both that are inputs and outputs, like your headphones, right? If your headphones have microphones, it's going to input the sound, and then if they have speakers, it's going to output the sound back to your speakers. And so that's kind of how that works. So that's the micro. Do we have any questions? Let me see here. No questions so far. All right. So, and we talked about this a little bit. So, why is understanding the hardware critical for business owners or for small businesses? Um, Number one, if you know the macro level, it helps you invest on the equipment that fits your needs, and also prepares you for growth, right? So, if you have a business plan and you need computer hardware, you want to take that headache away, right? You don't, and the reason for this, is especially if you have a very basic use for the computer hardware, or you just need a browser. um, this is where management and maintenance comes into play, because at the beginning you might not have any problems, or you might, but if everybody in the organization has different hardware and different
Mm-hmm.
issues, and they're going sorry, if they have different hardware, they're going to have different types of issues,
And
um,
inefficiency. Yeah.
because of the
So
hardware.
what do you think it would be kind of like I mean, we know that when a computer is crashing, it's probably just crashing on you not loading efficiently, or but what are the signs that it's not a software, it's a hardware issue?
um, oh man, that's a loaded question, because usually you don't really know until you know, and
Like, yeah.
as well, and one of the things, a lot of the hardware things are going to be physical, right? So if you have a laptop,
Mm-hmm.
you dropped it. If it starts
Mm-hmm.
making a weird noise after you dropped it, that's a hardware
Mm-hmm.
problem. If the screen is cracked
Okay.
because you dropped it, that's a hardware issue. If the hardware, you're going your the keyboard, the key on the keyboard stops working,
Mm-hmm.
um, most likely a hardware issue. Um,
I've never
if
experienced overheating, but that.
That's a hardware issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we've had a lot of those as well, and we monitor for we monitor the hardwares for our clients as well. So we can see, we get alerts when they're over a certain temperature and
Mm,
things like that, or if their RAM is at capacity or their storage is at capacity, we get alerts as well. So that's kind of what that, making those the right decisions very early on. If you understand your business very well and you understand the roles that everybody's doing, you can make the right decision um, by buying the right hardware for that
mhm,
position, or for your what you're trying to do there. You don't need, most of the cases, you don't need a $2,000, $3,000 computer. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
mhm,
You're not going to leverage um, you're not going to leverage that investment as well, and that's where cost management comes in, right? So um, that's like, oh, I want to get a Mac. Well, no, a lot of what I've heard this from some of our clients, like, oh, why can't we? I just want to get everybody a MacBook Pro, and I'm like, why? um, if you want to have a Mac ecosystem, that's great. I think the Mac ecosystem as a whole is really good. But again, it goes back to what are you trying to do? Um,
mhm.
if you're a group of engineers or mechanical engineers, and they're doing a lot of drafting and things like that, you won't be able to use Autodesk on a Mac, right? So some of the softwares don't run on those operating systems or on those types of machines. So now, if you invest in those, then now you're going to have to invest in different software, because you won't be able to use that Windows software, that Autodesk software on that Mac, unless you use virtual machines, which then it's like, why'd you get a Mac to begin with when you could have
Mhm.
just gotten a Windows machine and run it natively?
Right.
Yeah, and that's the overspending part. The underspending is if you're trying to be really cheap and you get the cheapest computer, you're going to pay for it. If it doesn't have enough RAM,
Mhm.
if it doesn't have enough power to do the tasks that role is trying to do, you're going
Yep.
to be
Mhm.
they're going to be spending time, either a lot of time with help desk because they're complaining about how slow it is, or just waiting, and
Mhm.
they'll be just waiting. You'll be paying them for them to wait, right? So that's where the
Mhm.
cost, you're going to pay for it either way. So that's why it's very important to have the right machines for what
I
people are
I
doing.
think I think that's exactly what is right ahead in the next two slides about the misconception. Like even the best software can run on a bad machine, and
Exactly.
mm, you just said it. You're paying them to wait for that
Yep.
really great software to load.
Exactly. And a lot of that is again, understanding what they're going to be running on that hardware, on that
Hmm.
machine.
Exactly.
And you should also look into that. Look, it's a tool. You're going to replace that,
Hmm.
right? So if you're going to replace that in 3, 4, 5 years, um, you you don't you don't want to get, at least from a business sense. From a personal sense, if you're a gaming aficionado, or a developer, that's just, if you're a computer hardware aficionado and you want to spend the money on it, from a personal sense, do it. It's
Hmm.
personal. Do whatever you want. But from a business sense, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It just doesn't. It just does. There's no business logic there where you're getting an ROI, or it's really providing you a lot of value, other than you can brag about it. Okay.
Correct.
And you have to think about your software. So one of the key concepts here, right? There's an interdependence of hardware and software, right? So software runs on a computer, so you need to make sure you have the right computer or the right hardware for that software to run.
Exactly.
Like we were just talking about, if you're trying to be really cheap, and sure, the software is going to run on it, but it's not going to run as good as you want it. It might crash sometimes, and you're going to complain about it. Compatibility, right? That is extremely important. It's a lot less of a problem now because we've evolved over time and technology has gotten better, and so there's a lot of compatibility all over the place. So whether you're using Windows, Linux or Mac, there's a lot of software out there that is compatible to do what you're trying to do. But there are some very stubborn softwares that have not bridged out from a compatibility standpoint. They have stayed in their lane. I'm going to be a Windows software. I'm going to be a Mac software. I'm going to be a Linux software. And they have just stayed there. And so, from a compatibility standpoint, that's going to be an issue. That's actually one of the reasons why a lot of companies, software companies, have moved to a SaaS model, because now they don't have to worry about
Hmm.
which what hardware is compatible to what. It's if it can run Chrome, if it can run Edge, you have access to their software, and it runs on their machines, not on your machines, right? So if you download a software and application, it's actually using your resources to run the application. um, and if it's on a website or something like that, it's on their servers. So you're just getting a window into their computers in a sense, and using their hardware.
Great.
And this is exactly what we've been talking about, right? So a small retail shop probably doesn't need a lot of processing power or powerful hardware than a video editing studio, where they probably would have
Would have need.
big machines
Hmm.
to process all of that rendering for those videos. Um, and I would say that those are the biggest hardware components. Is that if you're rendering anything, game, video, simulations, now with AI, like AI algorithms and stuff like that, like those are the ones that require different approaches, high CPU, high RAM, things like that to process what they're doing.
Wow, I think this slide really wraps up all of the ideas that you just said.
All right, let's go through these misconceptions, right?
Everything. Yes,
Yeah,
everything. So we cover a lot, definitely.
yeah, and we're just at time, so this is perfect. So, more expensive computers are always better. Yes, but no. They are going to be better, but they're not going to give you the ROI. They're not,
Hmm.
and that's what a lot of small business owners often do. They're excited about their computer. They think that they're going to be able to use this computer for a long period of time. In most of the cases, you would be, especially if you buy cutting edge. Cutting edge is going to let you let you wait until you buy that next one.
Hmm.
Next, but that doesn't really help your growth, because now that's one computer that only one person can use at one time.
Hmm.
So if you're positioning yourself for growth, you could have spent half and positioned yourself to be ready for that second or third employ to be able to help you, right? To
Exactly.
assist you. So this is where more expensive computers are not always better, and this is why, right? Because you're just overpaying for something that's going. Yes, it might last you a lot longer, but it's not going to help you grow. It's not going to help you scale. Um, any computer can handle business operations. Yes and no. Um, it depends on the use case, right? So if you're just browsing the internet, any computer can do that nowadays. But if you have high level grade software, or you're trying to do multiple things at the same time, then now that's where you really need to look at your hardware strategy. And engineers doing drafting, doing rendering are not going to should not have the same computer as the receptionist. Right? Unless the receptionist is also doing engineering, high level rendering, and stuff like that, then go for it. But if they're just on, there's browser versus rendering. If they're just using a browser, um, then the different computers is different. So all storage is the same. No.
No.
So the difference here is of storage is speed, especially
Hmm.
if you have a file storage system that is for everybody to connect. If you
Exactly.
have slow storage devices, then anybody trying to connect to that file system is going to complain because it takes too much time, especially if you have a high volume of people trying to connect to it.
Connect at the same time. Yep. Hmm.
Yep. And there's also a very big difference between operational storage and backup storage.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is, most of it is going to be speed, and so that should be a problem. Um, Data loss is potential there, but mainly what you'll notice, and a lot of the storage nowadays, if you're going to do any type of backup, um, put it in the cloud, or if you are working on highly confidential information that you can't have anywhere, well, you already have you should either contact us to help you make sure that you have the right processes and strategies for that highly confidential information. But again, there's the cloud. We'll talk about that in a future session. But that's usually the safest way to go, especially if you're here in Houston or in a zone, a locality where there's a lot of natural disasters. You probably want to leverage the cloud there. Upgrading hardware is unnecessary. No, that is a security risk. Always update your hardware, um, especially Windows. um, that's, well, I would say it's all free game now. So just make sure, from a security perspective, always have the latest and greatest, um, so that you don't have any new issues. Cheaper hardware saves money. Yes,
And no.
but it depends on what you're using it for, right?
Yes.
Also, you also got to look into account of who that vendor is, because of that as well. If you're getting, I mean, sometimes you get what you pay for. From a computer standpoint, the vendors are very important.
Hmm.
um, the brand of the computer that you get is sometimes very important, because of the quality of the chips that they use, the quality of the hardware that's within the computer that they use. So that's also very important. Um, but hey, if if it's not a cheap hardware, what I've seen for cheap hardware is if it has a high risk of getting damaged anyways,
Mm.
get the cheapest hardware. Right? You have a construction worker, he has a tablet, this
Oh,
and that,
okay.
and
Yeah, there
it's
you go.
going to be banged around this and that.
Mm-hmm. Good use case. Mm-hmm.
Get get the cheapest hardware. It's gonna get broken anyways. Just focus on getting the data backed up or things like that. So that's where we would want to focus on how do we strategize for that. Hardware is a one-time investment. No, your business. I hope you're planning for your business to grow, and it's going to require for you to buy new hardware over time, and hardware gets obsolete. So at a certain point, it's going to take a couple of years, but at a certain point, they won't support the hardware that you've bought, 5 or 10 years ago, and they'll stop doing security updates to that. Windows does, all of the big operating systems do this, um, and so you, from a business standpoint, now you will have to invest on new hardware that can continue to get more updates.
Right.
Oh,
So this is our opportunity to basically invite anybody to go ahead and book a 10-minute consultation call. It's a courtesy call that we can, in which we can always help you. We also have a kindly reminder of this Tuesdays and Thursday workshop. There will be a series in a continuous series of these IT foundations this week, and we can't wait.
yeah. And if you need any help on what your hardware strategy should look like, or maybe you have a a ticket scare every time you see your IT department purchase hardware. Why is this so expensive? And well, you just don't know any better. Then you can reach out to us to get you a second opinion. And
Hmm.
we're always going to tell you um, our true, honest answer of what we think is appropriate for the type of business that you do. Um, and so that's where this is our sales pitch to you is like, hey, if you need hardware, um, if you're looking at a hardware strategy, or every 3 to 5 years you're spending so much money on hardware, um, give us a call, and we'll we'll take a look and see where you can save money on hardware. Ooh,
Great.
uh-oh. So the next session, we're talking about operating systems. So this is what we're talking about next session. Network basics. We're going to talk about cloud, some information security. So are we covering, Lauda, are we covering all of this on Thursday, or are we just covering pieces of this on
just
Thursday?
just pieces of it.
Okay.
We are just gonna go through some of it. Some of it out. I'm gonna invite everybody to go read our blog. We're putting a lot of information in our blogs that are basically covering all of these sessions, and to basically just try to get that information out there in order for people to be well informed and to make great decisions for the business, to be able to help. So it will be there, but not all of it, obviously. Cloud computing is just a whole semester, right?
Oh yeah, it's a whole certification. So I'm
Exactly.
just showing on the screen how to look for our blog. If you go to EVDevTech.com and then you click on blog and on our navigation, and so then you'll start to see some of our tech insights that we share.
Great.
Alrighty,
Nice. So we didn't have questions, but we will at some point, and we're always welcoming those.
absolutely. Again, remember um, this is for you guys. We always have a topic at hand because I'm sure nobody just wants to sit around and watch us just do something. So just waiting for someone to give us a question. So we always have a topic so that we're not bored, but we're here for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Erick.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. See you Thursday.